Hello everybody, Josh12 back here again with another video, and I'm here with my official review for Man of Steel. Yes, for preparation for the release date of Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice, which is finally upon us, I decided to go back real quick and give you my official thoughts, breakdown, and review for Man of Steel, which is the predecessor to Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice. And of course it came back out in 2013, so please keep in mind that this review may contain spoilers. So for that being said, let's get into Man of Steel. Now of course Man of Steel is Warner Brothers' attempt to retell and reboot the Superman franchise, and is directed by Zack Snyder, based on a story by David S. Goyer and Christopher Nolan, and of course stars Henry Cavill as Superman, Amy Adams as Lois Lane, Lawrence Fishburne as Perry White, Kevin Costner and Diane Lane as Ma and Pa Kent, and Michael Shannon as General Zod, and of course Russell Crowe as Jor-El. Now, overall, let's start off with the positives. This is a very controversial film for various reasons. A lot of people are mixed with Man of Steel ever since its release. For me personally, I always liked it, but let's start off with the positives. The positives are the opening sequence, Krypton. I always liked the idea that Man of Steel took a more science fiction approach to retelling the Superman franchise, and I think it was an amazing job to just set out practically an entire film dedicated to the events of Krypton and what led to Superman ending up on Earth. And I feel like they did an amazing job on that front. It looked visually amazing with all Zack Snyder movies, and it was just a great way to start off the film. It may have been maybe too long for some audience members and some fans, but for me, I thought it was an awesome way to start off the Superman film. Moving off of that, the performances. The performances of these actors portraying these classic characters are awesome. I mean, Henry Cavill as Superman, he is the Superman of today's generation. I know I love my Christopher Reeve, and Tom Welling was great on Smallville, but at the end of the day, Henry Cavill kills it. He's so freaking good as Superman slash Clark Kent slash Kal-El. And moving off of that, Amy Adams is pretty good as Lois Lane. I always liked her version of Lois Lane. I know a lot of people had various problems with that. Overall, when it comes to her and Lawrence Fishburne and everybody else who works at the Daily Planet in said movie are pretty good. They're okay for the most part. Moving off of that, we also have Michael Shannon as General Zod, who is badass and menacing. We already know this when it comes to the DC Universe. The DC Universe is chock full of amazing villains, and Michael Shannon as General Zod kills it. He's so freaking good. And of course the two major standouts performance-wise and character-wise, besides Henry Cavill as Superman and Michael Shannon as General Zod, has to be hands down Kevin Costner and Russell Crowe as the fathers of Superman. I feel like those two were the best out of the movie, other than the two that I mentioned previously and the rest of the cast. They were just so freaking good. Kevin Costner killed it, Russell Crowe killed it. They were just amazing choices for these characters. Before we get into the actual plot, for me personally, when I look at it in retrospect, the Superman Man of Steel film is kind of like every single Superman failed movie project Warner Brothers has ever tried to do mixed into one movie. You have your Superman Lives, you have your Superman Flyby, you have a little hints and taste of Justly Mortal, and it's all mixed into this one filter by Christopher Nolan. And I feel like that's the best way when you have to go into Man of Steel and trying to get into the story. That's what you're getting into. You're getting into a movie that's like 10 years in the making, because Warner Brothers has tried their hardest to really reboot this franchise. Now the story itself has a very different kind of linear storyline slash narrative in comparison to other superhero movies. It has a very like Chris Nolan, almost Batman Begins as kind of flashback, flash forward storytelling when it comes to telling the story of how Clark Kent deals with his powers and abilities, his relationships with his fathers and his mother, and of course his family and friends surrounding him, and of course the build up in the lead up to him taking on the mantle of Superman and saving the world from General Zod and the rest of the Kryptonians that we later meet up in the movie. And I feel like it was a pretty good move to go that route. I mean, granted, a lot of people also have, once again, their various problems with that. I have no real qualms with that. The way they decided to just, the second Clark gets to Earth, just cut from that right into him as an adult, I think was a great way. You get to spend a lot of time with him dealing with these real life these really lifelong problems that he has from the comic books and from his trials and tribulations and his adventures through the world, through Smallville and Kansas and all the way to, Metropolis. You get to see that happen in the flashbacks, and I like that they decided to go that route, and for me personally. And of course, the creme de la creme when it comes to Man of Steel that I love and held as an amazing positive is the action sequence. Superman franchise has always been very minimal when it comes to epic action sequences. I mean, of course, we couldn't really have that much in the Richard Donner universes. Of course, Superman Returns didn't give us amazing action sequences, with the exception of like two scenes at max. But this one was the first time we got to see a Superman battle done correctly in a much more worldwide scope level, and I love that. I love the fact that it decided to really go that route, and Zack Snyder was the perfect guy to direct those kind of sequences. I don't think anybody else could really get those kind of sequences that Zack Snyder brought to the table when it comes to action in this movie. Granted, once again, because of the controversy, a lot of people feel it feels too CGI. Maybe it's a little too video game-esque. For me personally, I think it works for the most part. I love the action sequences. It's basically like Dragon Ball Z brought to life, basically. But moving off of that, let's get into some negatives, things I didn't really like with the movie. The biggest part is the third act of the movie. The third act is so cluttered. It's so gigantic. Once the Kryptonians come to Earth and they finally start terraforming Earth and start destroying Metropolis, things get way too hectic in that third act. I feel like they should have minimized it, edited down, where we have only like a few battles and then get into the actual big battle between General Zod and Superman. But I really didn't like the fact that they decided to shoehorn so much stuff into it. I mean, you have the military versus Kryptonians. You have the Kryptonians terraforming Metropolis. You have the rest of the Daily Planet trying to escape, the destruction. And of course, rest of the Metropolians, if you will, if I could call them that. And of course, you have Superman flying all over the planet, basically trying to stop these terraforming machines. And then, of course, you have the big battle with the Kryptonians, and then you have the biggest battle with General Zod. There's just so many. It's action after action after action, and that's great. But at the same time, you just want a slow moment, and that's the thing that takes away, at least as an audience member or as a fanboy, it kind of takes you out of it, because you just want some slow moments to really understand everything and really get used to this Superman. Another real thing that kind of takes me out of this is the fact of how little time Superman has to really become Superman. The second he becomes Superman, he's already thrown to the wolves and having to take down this Kryptonian freaking army led by General Zod, who's the main antagonist of said movie. And even though, once again, action-wise, looked freaking great visually, I mean, the amazement of seeing those characters battle, like every single scene from like middle to third act and finale of this movie is awesome looking, but at the same time it just feels like they should have saved some of that for future movies, like future Man of Steel sequels, Superman sequels. It just feels like it's just too cluttered, and Superman doesn't have enough time to breathe as Superman. I feel like they should have just started small and then worked their way up, but they decided to just go right into it. And overall, the movie itself feels a little too dark and gloomy for me. Now, granted, Warner Brothers has definitely tried to make sure that their DC universe is very different from Marvel, and as much as I appreciate them trying to do that and make it perfectly clear that they're not trying to do the Marvel formula, I just feel like this overly desaturation of the world of Superman just was not the best move, and probably the main reason as to why people are so pissed off at this DC universe, because it looks so dark and gloomy and not colorful. Metropolis needs to look a very certain way. The world of Superman needs to look a very certain way, and Zack Snyder and company didn't really do that, and I just don't really like the look of it. I feel like the movie's awesome, it's very fun, it's very entertaining, there's a lot of action. I love Superman's hero journey, but at the end of the day, that just look and style and the camera work that's used, the shaky cam that's used as well, just doesn't work for me. And those are like the major negatives. But overall, I love this movie. It's freaking great. I don't really completely understand the hatred and controversy that people throw at this movie. Is it the greatest superhero movie of all time? Not really. Is it a good superhero movie? Yes, it is. And does it deserve the hate that it gets consistently since its release date to now, to the release date Batman Superman Dawn of of Justice? Not really, not at all. And I personally like this movie, and it has the number one thing I love about superhero movies that a lot of other superhero movies that even are probably better than this one don't have, which is rewatchability. The greatest thing about this movie is that it's completely rewatchable. I watch it all the time. The music by Hans Zimmer is great. Zack Snyder did a great job action and visual wise. Henry Cavill is a great Superman. Every other actor throws in a great performance, and just the overall characterization and story and hero journey that Superman goes in this movie is awesome, and I love it. So that's all I really can say. My final verdict for Man of Steel is a solid 8 out of 10. I personally love this movie, but let me know what you personally think in the comments section below, and let me know your personal hype for Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice, and what do you personally think about that. And of course, use spoiler tags. Try not to be too spoilerific if you've seen the movie, of course, and later on, I'll have my official Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice review later in the week. But with that being said and done, hope you guys enjoyed. Shameless plug time. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Jonch12. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so already. And hope you guys enjoyed. And this has been Jonch12.